What's up ninjas, Brennan here, and today we will be doing some vibe coding using Roo. Now in the previous video we covered what Roo was, and this video we are going to be doing three things. Within Roo we have multiple modes. We'll be using the Ask Roo mode to research some basic questions, and this is going to be pretty similar to chatting with something like ChatGPT. And then we'll use a planning, we'll do some planning using the architect Roo mode. So this is where we'll use things like the PRD and the technical architecture documentation, and even generate a task list. And then finally we'll do the implementation using the code Roo mode, and this will include some test cases. Let's do the first task, which is to research using the Ask Roo mode. So this is where we left off. We had VS Code, it had generated a task file, or we looked at the ungenerated or templates for the task files, the notes, and the architecture. Just as a recap, we cloned the Vibe Code Injective starter repo, and we got through the setup stages and even did a bit of review. And this is essentially what we're going to do today, right? We're going to do some research, some planning, and some implementation. If you don't already have a wallet, please install one. You can get started with MetaMask. That's fairly easy. I'll just quickly run through a few other things that you should already have set up for Injective development. You should have the Block Explorer on BlockScout so that you can see EVM transactions on Injective. And then go to, if you haven't set up your wallet, go to iancoleman.io/bip39. I'll put links in the descriptions. Select 12 words or whatever you feel like, and then press generate. You'll get a mnemonic, and you'll be using that later. And here we go. We also have the Injective faucet, and that's at testnet.faucet.injective.network. And you can paste in your EVM address, or you can connect your wallet, and then it'll pre-fill these fields. And then you can complete the captcha and request tokens, and you're good to go with some testnet INJ. And finally, you'll need, for this thing at least, we're going to be doing NFTs, it's just a sneak peek. So you'll need somewhere to upload your files to IPFS, and for that you need to either run your own IPFS node, or you need to go through a gateway that provides that service for you. And I'm just going to be using Pinata for the sake of easiness, not having to run your own IPFS node. All right, let's get started. So let's open up the first Roo mode, which is to go for Ask. And what we'll do here is we will ask it a very basic question, such as, can I do smart contract development using Solidity on Injective? So very basic question, right? So we're querying this on Gemini 3, one of the latest models. And so you can see we've previously connected and configured the MCP for Injective documentation. And yes, you absolutely can. It has support for EVM, etc., etc. Now this part, I know that it has got it wrong, right? Because in EVM it's outdated. So if you do a Google search, interestingly, it will not give you in EVM. But if you search in LLM models, I think it's got outdated data that's been trained on, and so we'll get this deprecated one. We are working on that to correct that. Supported tools, right? Yep, this is pretty good. Like, so it supports Hardhat and Foundry. I'm not sure why MetaMask is the same category, but it is factual. MetaMask does work. And then unique capabilities, yep, that's correct. So we have a few precompiled, these two being the most heavily used ones. So the bank module is the one that gives you multi-VM token standard, where ERC20 token can be also a Cosmos denom at the same time. That's pretty good. Oh, there we go. We've got multi-VM token standard again. And again, it's made the same mistake. But if we substitute in EVM with Injective testnet EVM or Injective mainnet EVM, that is going to be a solid answer. All right, so it has given me a pretty solid answer. Okay, so that will be our research. I mean, of course, feel free to ask additional questions as well, but I'm pretty satisfied that I am able to develop on Injective with EVM smart contracts. So I'm good to go. The next step will be to plan using the architect Roo mode. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to start a new task. That's important to do, right? Because you want to start a new context window. And we are going to switch modes, right? Currently we were on Ask. Now let's select Architect. And if you want, you can also at this point change which model you want. In case you have, let's say you want to switch to Claude or stay on Gemini. One more thing I'll point out as well is what do you want to auto approve. Now, earlier on what you saw was the MCP. I didn't have to manually press yes, I allow Injective Docs MCP to be approved, and that's because I have selected this. I've also auto approved read files, so it can read files from here, and that will be very important. For write files, I intentionally do not want it to do anything. Right? I want it to ask me each time and show me the diff. I want that myself, the human in the loop. And then to-do list as well. So I think Roo works best if it manages its own list of tasks internally within its own memory, and it doesn't have to ask me permission for each time. It needs to do that. For execute, yeah, so if it wants to execute a command line, I'm not going to let it do that itself. So I think that these three are the reasonable minimum from which you can start, and then you can selectively increment that based on your own preferences. I'm going to continue with those three, and then I'm going to give it a specification for the project, right? So I'm going to say, please help me to plan a project. All right, so I've given it instructions saying that, note that you should only plan and update these particular files and do not begin any implementation. Please ask me questions, and then put the specification in. So I have assets, and then I have essentially just one asset, which is the Injective logo, but in 3D form as a sphere. Then I've specified the front end, where I want webcam input and detect the positions of the user hands and fingers. So when they move their hands, then the things move, essentially. The logos will move around 3D space, and there should be 100 of them. And it's all going to be done in Three.js. And then for the blockchain part of it, there's going to be an NFT smart contract based on OpenZeppelin, and then the NFT smart contract is also ownable, and the owner can transfer ownership, and the owner can also withdraw the fees that are collected, because each time, we'll get to that, the minting later, and it should be deployed on the Injective testnet. And then, so this part here is front end and blockchain interaction. So when the user starts the application, they are prompted to connect the MetaMask or whatever wallet, and then so it should also include an option to connect to Injective testnet. And then when the spheres are in the position that the user wants, they can essentially load the image of what's on screen to IPFS and then mint an NFT with that. Let me see. So when they mint it, the smart contract contains a fee, which is collected by the smart contract itself and eventually can be withdrawn by the owner. All right, let's go ahead and do that and see what Roo does. So now it's making a call to, in my case, Gemini. All right, so it's done a bit of initial thinking, and then it has read in documentation these three files that I have open at the moment, right? Architecture, notes, and tasks. And you'll notice that it's gone ahead and done that automatically because I've already got read as auto approved. Then it has a question. Great. So this is awesome because my specification, right? Let's actually make this a bit bigger so that it's easier to read. My specification of my task admittedly does not contain all the information that is necessary. Right? This is a very high level description, like maybe one level of depth in terms of detail, right? So I think it's good that Roo is asking me a question. Hand tracking. Do you have a specific library in mind for hand tracking? Network and tooling. Oh, good point. Should have specified. Network and tooling. Let's go to docs.injective.network. Go to EVM developers, EVM network information, EVM testnet. All right, there we go. Do not use an EVM as that has been deprecated. So we do not need any of that other stuff. 3D Acid, it has a good default choice. I actually have no idea what this is. I'm not actually familiar. So IPFS, yes. Right, so the correct solution is implement a backend proxy or serverless function, but for the purposes of this demo, I'm going to simply say client-side upload is acceptable for this prototype. Yeah, and then I can ask it to change that later on and add that. So let's make that consistent and let's go. All right, so remember with the auto-approved to-do list, so that's essentially this thing here. Roo has his own internal to-do list feature, and it's doing that right now. Now, when you see this over here, these diffs popping up, that is important, right? That's because I have approved read but not write. So Roo cannot automatically write, and I would like to review it. And the reason for that is sometimes it doesn't make the best decisions, right? So that's what I have this file over here for. So under docs, I have architecture and PRD, and there's also a file called notes, which is, pretty much what it says here, right, in the default, right? So I'm gonna use this file to make notes whenever there is any implementation over here or any planning over here that is incorrect, because I can't edit it directly, or if I do, it is not within the context. So I have to actually just let it do its thing, even though I notice mistakes. So this diff is accept or reject, doesn't have an in-between. It doesn't have a, okay, let me modify it. On that just doesn't play well with the tool. So one of the limitations. Let's go back to Roo, and as and when I notice anything that is incorrect, I will just simply change that, right? I'll make note of that in the notes and then prompt it or edit it directly later on. All right, so yeah, that sounds okay. Goals and objective, great, that sounds great. Project serves as technical demo, okay, great. Technical assumptions, okay, has a webcam, has MetaMask install. It doesn't really matter, but it could be any Web3 wallet. So I'll just make a note of that. PRD, Injective EVM testnet, client-side API key usage is acceptable. Yep, that clarified that. Users are familiar with, yep, sure. We're not targeting complete Web3 newbies. Okay, so here are some user stories. Want to see 3D spheres, move in response. Okay, wallet connection. Okay, I think, yeah, for the demo, just MetaMask is fine, but ideally we'd want something like wallet connect. So, to wallet connection, any EVM compatible Web3 wallet. And I'm just gonna prefix that as later, meaning I don't need it in the MVP, right, that I'm gonna generate. Okay, that sounds great. So I'm reviewing each of the things that it has updated. Okay, sounds good to me. So once you've reviewed a file change, all you need to do is press save or reject. So my suggestion is, unless it's got something completely wrong, just press save and take a few notes over here for what are the minor changes that you want, or the tweaks or edits that you want to add later. Let the task in Roo complete first. All right, so it's accepted the edits and now the file's been updated and it's moved on to the next file, which is architecture. So the PRD is done, the technical architecture is done. Great. All right. Yep. I don't really like the use of the phrase single page app. It's just a D app, I would say. Yeah, because single page application implies front-end frameworks such as, yeah, so context and scope. What I want to do is go back to my notes and say, so architecture document. All right, moving on. Solution strategy. Yep, this one, I don't want React Invite. I don't want 3JS via this. Media pipe is fine. Right. So for solution strategy, I'm going to take that out. Building block view. Okay, sure. Okay, so this is getting pretty React specific, so I'll need to prompt it to rewrite that using vanilla JS only. Okay, so it's deleted several sections. Not sure why it chose to do that. Right, but I do like this, architectural design like decisions. Okay, so I'll press save, and so now it's done technical architecture and it has also done the PRD as well earlier. Now it's going to do task assets. All right, so yeah, let's save that, and the next one is task blockchain. All right, sounds reasonable. Just checking all of that. Task blockchain sounds reasonable. All right, and then here we go for the main task file. Okay, that's great. And it's updated the task list and it's saying I've completed the task. Great. So instead of starting new task, in this case, I actually do want to continue the task because I want to keep this context window going, right? So that's essentially your decision-making criteria for whether you start a new task or continue chatting in the same task, whether or not you want to keep the same context window. In this case, I do want to keep the same context window. So I'm going to say tasks. All right, so I'm going to copy that. And that's what the notes file is for, right? And I am going to delete the user story to wallet connection thing. Just let it be MetaMask only for now. All right, and then I'll say, all right, so I'll just give the prompt saying, thanks, please make the following updates to the planning, PRD, architecture, and tasks. All right, so it's created a to-do list for itself, and it wants to add the PRD. Ah, I must have left in that EVM wallet thing. Okay, press save. For the architecture, does that change? Front-end architecture, vanilla JavaScript instead of React, no front-end frameworks. Great. Build tool is Vite configured for vanilla.js. Yeah, I'm okay with that. As long as Vite isn't bundled with Vue or React. 3JS, great. VM, great. Front-end application, entry point, etc., etc. Yeah, okay, so we've got several JavaScript files instead of React components. Languages, great. Save that. And the tasks are being updated. I kind of like how it is editing the file live and you can see the diff changing. Yeah, so this is going to be the new one. Vanilla.js project, configure Vite. Okay, that looks good, that looks good. Implement wallet creation, implementing minting logic, etc., etc. Okay, save. Yeah, okay, save. All right, I think that note to self, I should probably provide a template for the subtask groups. So for example, this is sprint, say sprint 2 blockchain core, and then front-end core, and then integration and polish, right? I think that, let's say I do this file over here, the sprints should also be named. So for example, this should be 2.1 and so on and so forth. Let's move on to the next part, which is to implementation. And for that, I think I am going to skip that for this video in light of time and do it in the next video instead. See you in the next one for the implementation. Ciao, bye.